Hi, I'm Jill Repp from June Tailor. Have you ever wanted to make a t-shirt quilt but were a little intimidated by the process? We have an easy solution for you with our reversible quilt kit. This quilt kit allows you to take 24 t-shirts and make them into a reversible quilt, 12 on each side. It's super easy to put together, it's perfect for a beginner, and we're going to show you how it works. Each of the reversible t-shirt quilts contain all the essential tools you're going to need, with the exception of t-shirts. You'll have to provide your own for that. So to start out with, you are going to be getting 24 pieces of woven fusible interfacing. These are all pre-cut 14.5 inches wide. And woven fusible is what we're going to use to back our t-shirt blocks with so that they're nice and stable. You are also going to get 12 pieces of cotton batting. This is an 80-20 cotton poly batting, and this is what we're going to sandwich in between our quilt blocks. You will get a 16-inch square press cloth, and this is great because you're going to use this not only for this project, but you can use this for other pressing in addition to your t-shirt quilt. And then you're also going to get this nice template. And this t-shirt template is going to help you center the motifs of your t-shirt, and it's going to allow you to make blocks 14.5 inches square, or you can see that there are actually slot openings in here that you can even make smaller quilt blocks. You can also center things on point, for example, if you want to make something with more of a diamond shape. If you want to use horizontal blocks, vertical blocks, this template is going to help you do that. For today, however, we're going to show you the square version. And then this is my favorite part. Each kit is going to contain 7.5 yards of this new product of ours called Sash and a Dash. And we're going to use this Sash and a Dash to join our blocks once we have them quilted. So this is basically a casing that's open on the two sides. You can kind of see there's a seam here and it's open on two sides. And we're going to be nesting our t-shirt blocks in each side of this casing, and that's how we're going to connect the blocks. And then we're going to use a larger piece of this to connect the rows. Once the blocks and the rows are connected, we're going to finish off by binding our t-shirt quilt, and matching binding comes in the kit as well. And this is a simple straight stitch on the edge, so it's going to be very easy. Let's get started. We're going to start out by pressing our t-shirts. Now you don't want to touch the iron over the top of the motif because it actually may stick to your iron. So take that press cloth out that you get in the kit, and let's just use that to get our t-shirts nice and pressed. We can use the front of our t-shirts, we can use the back of our t-shirts, or we can use even quilt blocks if we don't have enough t-shirts to do the whole kit. So once this is nice and pressed and flat, we're going to take our template, lay it over the top, and we're going to try to center the motif. I actually like to center it as much as I can, and you'll notice there's a big X in here, so it's really easy for you to center it top to bottom and then side to side. I am going to use the full square here. So grab a marking tool, anything will work, and what we're going to do is just simply line up our block and then make our mark along all four sides, and that's where we're going to be cutting our 14.5 inch block, just like that. All right, and you can take your scissors and cut that out. You can use a rotary cutter and cut that out. And I've already got that done here, so let me show you what that looks like. Here's our block, nice and pressed, 14 inches, 14.5 inches by 14.5. Now we want to take one of the pieces of woven fusible interfacing and attach it to the back. You're going to feel a little bumpy on one side, and that is the side that has the interfacing on. So we're going to want to put the interfacing with the bumpy side, or the fusible, facing up, and we're going to put our t-shirt block over the top. So let's say wrong sides are together here. Maybe that's an easier way to explain it. All right, so bumpy side goes to the back of the t-shirt. Line that all up, get our press cloth back out, lay that over the top. You'll notice that the press cloth is a little bit larger, which helps us. Grab your iron, and now what we're doing is basically we're fusing that woven fusible interfacing to the back of the t-shirt block. And the reason we want to do this is because the t-shirt block can be very stretchy, and that's no fun to sew. So we want to stabilize it so that it acts like a piece of cotton, so that it's not stretchy either way. So let's take this away, and it's sticking pretty well, but I always like to turn it over to the back and just give it another press. And now you don't need that press cloth. You can just press right on the back of the woven fusible interfacing. So now instead of having a stretchy t-shirt block, look at this. I have a t-shirt block that acts almost like a cotton. It doesn't stretch in either direction. I mean, let's face it, when we put our t-shirt quilts together, we have all kinds of t-shirts in there. Good ones, maybe not such good ones, so sometimes we really need to stabilize those blocks, and this will sew up really well. What's going to happen if you do not have a t-shirt that's large enough? You can actually add some sewn borders on so that you can make it into a 14.5-inch block. So we did that here. You'll notice that we have the fusible on the back of the t-shirt, but since the cotton is already stabilized on its own, you really don't need to add the fusible on the back. Here's a couple other ideas. If your t-shirts are too small, you can add just simple strips like we did here. Just a couple other more ideas for you. Make it a little bit more interesting. I like the plain t-shirt blocks, but others like to just decorate them a little bit more. This to me looks like a traditional quilt block, which is really pretty. And if you really are into quilting, look at what we've done here. We've added flying geese here and some squares on the side. For our show today, we're going to just use the regular quilt block. So now I've got one stabilized, and I also stabilized this block as well. So you can see my t-shirts on the front and my stabilized woven fusible is on the back. Now we're going to turn this over, and we're going to take one of the 12 pieces of batting, and we're going to sandwich that in between our two blocks like this. So one thing you want to do is to make sure that things are facing the right direction. So this is the top of my block. Make sure you turn it over, and that's the top of your block, or you're not going to be happy when you have your quilt sewn and something's upside down. I would actually suggest that you lay out the entire 12 blocks, front and back of your quilt, and kind of pin them together so that you know what ones are going to go with what ones and what are going to be next to each other on the front and the back side. So now that this is done, we are going to quilt this. There's a lot of different ways that you can do that. One way that I think is really easy is just to do straight line stitching, or you can do horizontal or vertical. And an easy way to do that, and keeping track of where you are stitching, is to just use painter's tape, or if you have a foot on your sewing machine that has a setting that you can go equidistant apart, use that. But a simple piece of tape is fine. You actually just lay this down next to your stitching and go ahead and stitch next to it right along here, pick it up, move it over, and continue on. And now our blocks are together. If you want to do the next block horizontal, I think that looks great too. The reason I like the straight line stitching is because I think it doesn't take away from the motif of the block. So now we have our block stabilized with our quilting. This is what it looks like on the front, and this is what it looks like on the back. So our next step is we need to join our blocks. So we're going to take this block and another one that we did, and you'll notice this one we did horizontal quilting on, and now we have to join those two. So let's get our black sash and a dash out. So now we have our two blocks and we have our sash and a dash. We're going to cut our sash and a dash so that it is going to cover both of these quilt blocks and give us a little extra over, so roughly about 16 inches. So you're going to cut that, and this is the fun part. You're just going to open up the casing of sash and a dash and nest your t-shirt block inside the casing. There's a seam line down here, so it's really obvious where that is going to be nested. And then what you can do is simply pin this in place and do the same on the other side. So we're going to open that casing and nest our next block in there like this and pin. And the only thing I just want you to be careful of here is making sure that the blocks are actually lined up top to bottom as best you can, and pin those into place as well. And then we're going to go to the sewing machine and we're going to run a straight stitch all the way down here and all the way down here. And then those two blocks will be joined. I've got that done here. So as you can see, our stitching is right along the edge, or even about 1/8 of an inch in on both sides. And our blocks are now joined. We're going to then join the third block in the same manner. And I've got that done here as well. So now we've got our third block on and our sashing is perfect. Once our 3 blocks are joined, then we're going to make the other rows. There are 4 rows and they are 3 wide. Our 3 blocks are joined. And you can see that it's not absolutely perfect. We've got a little batting hanging out here, but that's okay. This is a real forgivable process when we use this sash and a dash, because that is going to just go right underneath the casing of sash and a dash when we're done. So it's okay if you have a little bit of unevenness here. Now we're going to take our second row. So as you know, we do 3 blocks, join 3 blocks, and then we make 4 rows. And that's how we come up with our 12 blocks on the front and 12 on the back. So what we're going to do now is we are going to take another piece of our sash and a dash, and this one's going to be about 48 inches that we're going to cut. And we give you plenty in the kit. You get 7.5 yards in the kit, so there's plenty for you to use. And we're going to use the same process by joining the rows. And what you want to watch for here is to make sure that before you put that sash and a dash on, that you've lined these up. So let me just push this up a little bit, and we're going to do the same thing. We're going to nest our rows into sash and a dash and simply top stitch it. It's that easy. So I would definitely do a lot of pinning here to get them joined, because now you're working with a little bit more of a larger surface, but the process is the same. And once our blocks are joined and our rows are joined, then all we need to do is bind. So you can see how this is really coming together. And what I'll be doing is simply just pinning this all in place as I go down. And then I'll do this again on the top until both sets are done. Our blocks are joined, our rows are joined. The last step is we need to bind. And you will get binding in your kit. And this is nice wide binding, which we like for t-shirt quilts. And it's essentially, you're going to position the binding right around the edge and either straight stitch or zigzag stitch. We have a separate little video we're going to show you on how to turn the corner and make a nice mitered corner, and then your quilt will be done. And remember, if you have your blocks on the back, you have a reversible quilt. So you can actually have 12 different blocks on the front and 12 on the back. Here's an example of a quilt where we didn't quite have enough t-shirts, so we put some other things in that I think are kind of fun. This is just a piece of knit from a plain t-shirt, and this is a quilt block. So don't worry if you don't have enough t-shirts. And remember, here shows another example of our t-shirt wasn't wide enough, so we just added a little fabric on the outside edge, which is kind of fun. And then here, as we go down, you're going to see just other examples of how we've used a quilt block to put into position of what a t-shirt block is. And again, I love it when you have, you know, the stitching going one way on one block and then the center block going the other way. And then I'd reverse that out. So it's vertical here, horizontal here, and on each side. I think that gives it a great look. T-shirt quilts are so fun and they're so soft. People love receiving them as gifts. It's really a nice gesture and a great memory to give somebody a t-shirt quilt with all of their favorite memories of sporting events or band or just concerts they've gone to. They're so much fun to make and give as gifts. Again, our t-shirt quilt kits are available at Fat Quarter Shop, and they contain everything you need to make a reversible t-shirt quilt, with the exception of t-shirts. You've got to add those yourself. But just think, you can avoid having to go to a long arm, or you can do this all on your machine at home, because we're actually quilting this block by block, so it's super easy. And then we, of course, have the sash and a dash to easily join the blocks. So you get the pressing cloth, the template, 24 pieces of the woven fusible interfacing, all the batting that you need to sandwich it, and the sash and a dash, and matching binding to go with it. We can't wait to see what your t-shirt quilt is going to look like. If you've enjoyed this simple tutorial on making a t-shirt quilt, stay tuned because I'm here at Fat Quarter Shop all week and we're doing several different videos for you. If you haven't already, subscribe to the Fat Quarter Shop YouTube channel.